Bumpy Johnson agitated a beeline razor, not a gun. Bodies asked him why. Why not backpack a .45 like every added bandit in New York? Why wait on a barber's apparatus, a back you could acquire firepower? Bumpy would smile and say, guns are loud. Guns accompany police. A razor is personal. On March 15, 1935, at absolutely 11:47 p.m., Vincent Vic the Brand Romano abstruse what claimed meant. Duke Ellington was in the average of a Don't Begley affair at the Savoy Amphitheater of back albino, exploded beyond the stage. Vic Romano, a capo in Dutch Schultz's organization, had aloof sprayed $200 Dom Perignon at Harlem's greatest artist, like he was watering a lawn. The music stopped. 200 bodies froze and Bumpy Johnson's Duke confused his waistband. Not for a gun, for the razor. In that moment, anybody in the Savoy knew Vic Romano had a loof act of his own afterlife warrant. The Savoy Amphitheater was the Acme jewel of Harlem. Not the whites alone affection club area Atramentis performers entertained white audiences. The Savoy was different. It was integrated. Atramentis and white dance on the aforementioned floor, aggregate the aforementioned air, existed in an attenuate balloon of adequation that didn't abide anywhere abroad in 1935 America, the home of blessed feet. They alleged that a massive block connected ball anteroom on Lenox Avenue amid 140th and 141st Streets. 2 bandage stands, an able maple attic that could authority 4,000 dancers. And tonight, Duke Ellington's orchestra was authoritative at attic shake. Bumpy Johnson wasn't there to dance. He stood adjoining the back wall, watching, consistently watching. At 28 years old, Bumpy had already becoming his acceptability as Harlem's protector, not through loudness or flash, but through affected abandon and abiding principle. The neighborhood's numbers rackets, its alleged easies, its performers, its hustlers. They all confused beneath Bumpy's protection. Not because he accepted it, because they chose it. He was dressed in his signature style, charcoal 3-piece suit, tailored perfection, white shirt, Atramentis tie, apparent covering shoes, a beeline razor and a custom sheath central his waistband, 7 in of Sheffield steel, acid to embend that could breach a hair. Beside him stood Stephanie Street Claire, the numbers queen, affected in a blood-soaked dress, and Junie Bird, Bumpy's enforcer, abundance of man who becoming his acceptability breaking bones. At a table abreast the date sat Vincent Vic, the Brand Romano, with 6 of his guys, all Italian, all armed, all drunk. They'd been authoritative babble all night. Racist comments delivered aloof, loud, abundant to be heard. Amusement at the Atramentis dancers. Crude animadversion about the women. Bumpy had been watching them, waiting. A fresh Duke hit the acme of a song. Fingers aerial beyond piano keys. The horns building, the army mesmerized, and Vic Romano affected the albino bottle. He stood up, popped the cork, and sprayed it anon at Duke Ellington. The albino hit Duke mid-in-the-tee. Blood soaked his tuxedo, splashed a simile at the piano, got in his face, his eyes. The orchestra faltered, the music died. Duke stood there dripping. His face arctic in that accurate neutrality Atramentis performers had abstrused to abrasion aback white men ashamed them. Vic laughed loud, cruel. Dance, boy. Earn that paycheck. The Savoy went silent. Not the adequate blackout of abeyance amid songs. The airless blackout of 200 bodies' captivation their breath. Animate article abhorrent was about to happen. And Bumpy Johnson pushed off the bank and started walking. His footsteps echoed beyond the able floor. Click, click, click. Apparent covering on maple. Bodies confused abreast after actuality asked. The army beggared like the Red Sea. Bumpy's appropriate Duke adequate on his waistband. Casual, deliberate. Anybody in that allowance who knew him accustomed to gesture. Not a gun, the razor. Vic was still bedlam aback. Bumpy accomplished his table. The amusement died aback. He looked up and saw Bumpy's face. No anger, no rage, aloof empty, algae calculation. The announcement of man chief absolutely how abundant affliction to inflict. Stand up, Vic. Bumpy said quietly. It wasn't a request. Vic approved a grin. Approved a comedy tough. What's your problem, boy? The chap boy echoed through the Savoy like a gunshot. Bumpy didn't blink. His Duke confused his anorak slowly, deliberately, and he pulled out the razor. still in its sheath, aloof, captivated in his palm, the aphotic covering abrupt to join his skin. I said, "Stand up." This time, Vic stood, his 6 guys accomplished for their weapons. "Acquaint your boys," Bumpy said, his articulation acid to the allowance like the brand he carried. If they bright leather, they won't animate connected abundant to afflictionate. The 6 men froze because anybody in Harlem knew the stories. 3 enforcers who trod Accession Schultz's accolade after most month begin in an alleyway with their throats opened. A numbers agent who betrayed Stephanie to the Italians. A parent with his Argo cut out. A bedraggled cop who'd taken mob money to altercation Harlem businesses. Fished out of the East River with traitor carved into his chest. Bumpy Johnson didn't accomplish threats. He fabricated promises. And he consistently kept them. Bumpy stepped after piece to Vic, a budding abundant that Vic could aroma the bergamot cologne. A budding abundant to see the complete blank in Bumpy's eyes. "You sprayed albino at Duke Ellington," Bumpy said, his articulation almost aloft a whisper, but somehow accustomed to every bend of the amphitheater during his achievement in Harlem. "You appetite to explain to me why you anticipation that was acceptable?" Vic approved to rally. "Look, it was aloof a joke." "A joke?" Bumpy's deride traced the bend of the razor sheath. "Let me acquaint you a joke." Vic after most month. 3 of Schultz's boys absolved into a Harlem beautician boutique celebration. They could agitate bottom ward the owner. "You apperceive what's funny? We're still award pieces." The blush drained from Vic's face. "See, that's what happens to back bodies balloon area they are." Bumpy pulled the razor from its sheath. The brand bent the light. 7 of a flame steel. "You're not in the Bronx. You're not in Little Italy. You're in Harlem. And in Harlem, we acquire rules." He captivated the razor up. "Absolution, anybody see it. Rule Cardinal 1, you account the people. Rule Cardinal 2, you account the music. Rule Cardinal 3. The brand glinted as he angry it slowly. "You don't abase Duke Ellington and apprehend the airing out of actuality with the aforementioned face you absolved in with." Vic's easily were afraid now. "I'm connected. I'm with Dutch Schultz." Dutch Schultz. Bumpy's beam was cold. "You anticipate that name scares me?" Dutch Schultz doesn't own Harlem. Lucky Luciano doesn't own Harlem. "You appetite to apperceive who owns Harlem?" He stepped a light closer, the razor amid them. "We do. Every actuality in this ballroom, every artist on that stage, every ballerina on this floor. This is our kingdom, and I'm the man they assurance to assure it." Vix was afraid now. "What do you want?" "I appetite you to acquire something," Bumpy said softly. "You came into the Savoy celebration. You could do whatever you capital because you're Italian, because you're connected, because you acquire a gun and 6 guys abetment you, but you fabricated one mistake." He let the blackout adhere for 3 seconds. "You forgot that a razor is personal." The brand moved, not threatening, aloof, a accidental adjustment, but Vic flinched like Bumpy had stabbed him. "So here's what's activity to happen," Bumpy continued. "I'm activity to accord you 2 choices. Best one, you apologize to Duke Ellington loud, bright in advance of everyone. Afresh you airing out a Savoy. You leave Harlem, and you acquaint Dutch Schultz that this adjacency is assuredly bankrupt to Italian business." Vic's articulation cracked. "And best two," Bumpy smiled, the affectionate smile that fabricated men abandon their bowels. "Best two is I accessible this razor, an appearance you why they alarm me the Baron of Harlem. And Vic." He leaned in until their faces were inches apart. "I'm really, absolutely acquisitive you aces best two." The blackout was absolute. 200 bodies watching, waiting. The alone complete was Vic Romano's ragged breathing. "Because you see," Bumpy continued, his articulation bottom-ward to a whisper, "guns are impersonal. You cull a trigger. Man drops clean, simple, but a razor." He angered the brand slowly, communicable to light. "A razor requires commitment. You acquire to get close. You acquire to attending a man in the eyes while you accessible him up. You acquire to apprehend him beg. You acquire to aroma his fear." He paused. "And I've gotten actual acceptable at it." Vic's knees askance slightly. One of his guys confused to abutment him. "So what's it activity to be, Vic? An acknowledgement or a demonstration?" Vic's articulation came out as a croak. I'll apologize. Louder. I don't anticipate. Duke heard you. Vic, angry, had joined the date area. Duke still stood frozen, watching the surreal battle unfold. I apologize. Vic's articulation cracked. Mr. Ellington, I apologize. It was disrespectful. It was wrong. Attending at him, aback, you apologize. Bumpy commanded. Appearance in the account, you should acquire a parent from the beginning. Vic met Duke's eyes. I'm sorry, Mr. Ellington. Truly, it won't appear again. Bumpy, angry, to Duke. You acquire his apology, Duke? Duke Ellington, the best aristocratic man in Harlem, a ability who'd spent his activity abyssal white America's boldness with grace, looked at Bumpy Johnson, arresting him with a razor and tears abounding his eyes. Yeah, Bumpy, I accept. Bumpy nodded, a fresh angry aback to Vic. The razor was still in his hand, still open. Good. Now, here's what happens next. You and your boys' activity to airing out of the sea voice slowly, calmly, like men who aloof abstruse admired assignment about cartography and respect. He stepped a light closer. But Vic, if I any time apprehend your name in Harlem again, if you any time set bottom Arctic of 110th Street, if you alike anticipate about this neighborhood, I won't accord you choices. I'll aloof accessible this razor and acrylic the streets with you. And a back Dutch Schultz asks what happened. I'll accelerate him your Argo in a box with an agenda that says Harlem ain't for sale. Bumpy bankrupt the razor with a bendable click. The complete echoed like a gunshot. We clear? Vic nodded frantically. Crystal clear. A fresh get the underscore out of my sight. Vic and his aggregation didn't run, but it was close. They absolve out of the Seavoy like men abrogation their own funeral. The moment they were gone, the restriction broke. Addition started clapping, afresh another. Afresh the complete amphitheater erupted in applause. Bumpy angry to Duke. From the top, Duke, let's accord these bodies what they came for. Duke sat aback at the piano. His easily were shaking, not from fear, from emotion. He looked at Bumpy and mouthed two words. Thank you. Bumpy nodded once. A fresh absolver back to his atom adjoined the wall. Duke began to play, but this time the music was different. Added powerful, added defiant. Because Duke Ellington wasn't aloof arena addendum anymore. He was arena freedom. He was arena dignity. He was arena the complete of a man who'd been dedicated aback. He couldn't avert himself. The Seavoy erupted. Not aloof applause, celebration. Because anybody in that allowance accepted what had aloof happened. Bumpy Johnson had fatigued a band in the sand. He'd told the Italian mob, told Dutch Schultz, told every white bandit who anticipation they could booty Harlem. This adjacency belongs to us. Our music, our culture, our dignity, and we'll annihilate to assure it. Stephanie Street Claire absolved over Bumpy and affected his arm gently. You enjoyed that, she said with an animate smile. I enjoyed watching him piss himself. But added than that, I enjoyed reminding everyone, including us, that we don't acquire to acquire boldness aloof because able men apprehend us to. They'll retaliate. Schultz won't let this go. Bumpy's Duke adequate on the razor in his waistband. Let him come. I'll be waiting. Vincent Vic the brand Romano Larbird, New York the abutting morning. Chat advanced through Dutch Schultz's alignment oral hours. Harlem was off band permanently. Schultz approved to advance back. Beatific added enforcers. 2 weeks later, they were beginning the Harlem River with razors anchored in their chests and agenda fines to one body. Postage paid. Return to sender. Oral 3 months. The Italian mob had aloof from Harlem completely. Not because they were weak, because Bumpy Johnson had accomplished an assignment economics couldn't. Some territories amount added than their worth. And Harlem would amount them everything. The Seavoy adventure became legend. The night Bumpy Johnson faced bottomward a made man with annihilation, but a razor and complete conviction. The night he accustomed himself not aloof as a gangster, but as Harlem's protector. Years later, a back Bumpy was in Alcatraz confined time for conspiracy. Duke Ellington came to visit. They sat beyond from anniversary added in the visiting room. The artist and the gangster, afar by a table and a lifetime of choices. Why'd you do it? Duke asked. You could acquire, let it go. Could acquire, abhorred all of this. He gestured at the Bastille about them. Bumpy smiled. Duke, you apperceive what the aberration is amid a bandit and a king? Duke befuddled his head. A bandit takes. A baron protects. That night at the Savoy, I wasn't arresting you. I was arresting what you represent. A tremendous irate that doesn't apologize, doesn't bow, doesn't acquire boldness aloof because white men apprehend it. He leaned forward. You anticipate I affliction it? That razor opened Vic Romano's eyes that night. Opened a lot of eyes. Showed Harlem that we don't acquire to acquire their terms. That we can action back. That address is account dying for. Duke's eyes abounding with tears. You apperceive what you gave me that night. You gave me pride. For the aboriginal time in my career, I wasn't assuming admitting actuality black. I was assuming because I'm black. Because we're excellent. Because we matter. You consistently matter, Duke. I apperceive that now because you showed me. March 15th, 1935. The Savoy Ballroom. The night a beeline razor dedicated added than one man's dignity. The night Bumpy Johnson became the acknowledged protector of Harlem. The night the Italian mob abstrused that some kingdoms can't be conquered. The razor Bumpy agitated that night backward with him for the blow of his activity through Bastille sentences, through wars with added gangsters, through decades of attention Harlem streets. And aback Bumpy Johnson died in 1968. That razor was beginning his pocket, still sharp, still ready, still accustomed to bulletin he'd be a tiffic that March night. You can own Manhattan. You can own the Bronx. But Harlem protects its own. And anyone who forgets that assignment learns it the adamant way, one razor cut at a time. If this adventure of courage, dignity, and artery amends confuse you, hit that subscribe button and accent that like. Share this with Edition who needs to acquire what absolute administration looks like. The affectionate artificial in Harlem streets, not abstruse in boardrooms. Drop a comment. What is attention your association beggarly to you? Let's accumulate Bumpy's bequests alive. The asperse of Harlem stood up aback anybody abroad, backward, silent.